Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. And today, I feel like a lot of talk about the manager, a lot of talk about Rúben Amorim. But today I want to shine the light on INEOS, because I think they're getting off a little bit lightly for me. Because a lot of the incompetence that we're seeing right now are basically the result and stemming from some of the decisions they've made. Because this is INEOS best in class, must we not forget. So, for me, everyone knows my opinion on the manager right now. I think it's time to go. And we are just sleepwalking to what seems like an inevitable eventuality, which is Rúben Amorim being sacked and United going through the manager carousel again. But when you make the wrong appointment, I know hindsight is always 20/20, that's what happens. Because I don't see how he turns this around. I think he's out of his depth. I think he's half given up. I think the team is starting to get a little bit dismayed with constantly going out and being set up to lose. And I think the pressure on INEOS needs to build as well. Because now, if we go back in time, it calls into question the due diligence they did when they made the appointment anyway. There's been a lot of criticism towards them about things that haven't looked good when you talk about optics, which is sacking dinner ladies, cost cutting, a lot of the hard decisions they've had to make in order to kind of right the wrongs of years and years and years of malpractice from the Glazers. It's not exactly an easy situation they've picked up and tried to improve, but it doesn't void you of scrutiny and criticism when things aren't going right. Because they have presented themselves as the best in class. Omar Berrada, Jason Wilcox, I'm looking at you. Jim Ratcliffe. Because some of my frustration comes from them coming out and basically saying, we're back in Amorim, even after the Brentford loss. Apparently the Simon Stone is the one that said this. Apparently all the briefs about manager shortlists and contingency plans are way off the mark. For me, it seems like INEOS believe in Amorim more than Amorim believes in himself. And that is a very slippery slope. You can call into question recruitment. You can call into question decisions. I think alarm bells should have been ringing when they decided to emotionally, like fans were, being quite fickle. I almost got sucked into that myself, if you look back, in keeping Ten Hag after his FA Cup triumph. Everyone's like, you can't sack him now. He's just won an FA Cup win against Man City. Emotions are high. But that's why fans aren't in those positions. Because you aren't meant to make sentimental, emotional decisions like that. But INEOS, who just recently came in before that match, it was the first big decision they had to make, and they dropped the ball. They come across a little bit inadequate, unprepared, and he went for the easy option of, you know what, we've seen the fan letters, we've seen the fan mail, he's just won the FA Cup, he's not our guy. And it was clear when they were interviewing other people, they didn't believe in him. But you know what? We're going to keep him anyway. Where's the courage of your convictions? How is that a leadership group that you can get behind? So that was alarm bell number one. And that's not even talking about the stuff with cutting jobs and cost cutting, because some of that, I guess, can be argued that it's basically a problem of the Glazers doing. But for them to sack Ten Hag only a few months later into the season, basically writing off the season when it was quite obvious that he wasn't the guy. And then they followed it up by recruiting Rúben Amorim. I know this is hindsight, but it was still heavily countered, his appointment at the time, by a lot of people. You all hate tacticals or like as you like to call them, or people that actually do research, thinking that they know it all. But I saw several people that went onto WeScout and watched hours on end of footage of sport in Lisbon to try and give you fans, by the way, information on how they play, and said, do you know what? His game model and philosophy doesn't translate well to the Premier League, and he's got an abundance of issues that he needs to fix if he's going to be a success. And look where we are now. So if you're telling me self-proclaimed tacticals on Twitter that aren't professionals can do that and have concerns, how can INEOS and Manchester United have seen that? He interviewed with Liverpool, Amorim. They had one meeting with him and said, nah, not for him. Not for them. Wrong guy. That's why Liverpool are where they are now and we are where we are now. Michael Hughes and the likes, best in class for a reason. West Ham as well, pulled out of Rúben Amorim. But it would be United that will go through the lengthy recruitment process that they did, jump over all the red flags and concerns and go through with it anyway. And now we are in a situation where it seems like INEOS, the likes of Berrada and Wilcox, are letting their pride and egos get in the way of pulling the plug. Because what it will look like is that the first big decision they made, they got wrong. And that will put pressure on themselves. So instead of admitting defeat, they'd rather ride it out on a little bit of hope that a decision that they made could somehow come to fruition, when I don't believe anyone with working eyes can see that happening. Just so many things going wrong. And I think they are on fraud watch, because once Amorim goes, because it's an eventuality, they need to start making better decisions. And we're going to have to start seeing incremental improvement on the pitch. You're right, it is good to improve the backroom staff. It is right to improve the background stuff at a club. But the be-all and end-all of a football club is what happens on the pitch between the white lines. Because the better you are between those white lines, the better the club works upstairs. And that's just the facts of the matter. But I can't believe where we're at. And the fact that they made the mistake anyway of keeping Ten Hag when it was clear that he shouldn't have been given a new season and the 250 million to 300 million pound investment as well. And they went and did the same thing with Amorim, who they knew at the time, they said, we are going to suffer. We don't have the personnel that suits this guy's system and formation and philosophy. But you know what? We're going to hire him anyway, without a summer window and without any investment. Which then, shock horror, led to one of the worst runs of form you've ever seen from a big club manager. But they made their minds up in November that they were going to keep him in the summer anyway, because they knew he needed investment, effectively writing off about 7 months of the season. I look back at that and think that is an absolute travesty of a decision. I don't think you've got the time in football, because you don't operate in a vacuum. You don't have the time to just write off seasons like that, whilst your rivals get stronger around you and build something palatable around you. That's how you get left behind. But he did it anyway. No true belief in what he was doing, or no true success off the back of what Amorim was putting out on the pitch. But he said, you know what? He didn't have a summer window, which is obviously it's a point of their own doing. And he said, we're going to invest 300 million, 250 million, and see how it goes. And shock horror, it hasn't got any better. So now we're on the verge of INEOS making the back-to-back wrong decision of keeping a manager for a summer when they weren't worthy of it. And then what you end up doing is you hit the eject button because you have to at this point, by October, November, and you've basically hampered and almost basically amputated a whole season where manager shortlists within a season, threadbare. All the clubs have already got the successful managers doing well. United have to go through the interim route, which is also a difficult decision to make in itself. We are in a mess. And somehow when you think things can't get any worse at Manchester United, we somehow find a way. But I think INEOS, Berrada, Wilcox, Jim Ratcliffe need to start booking their ideas up and making better decisions, doing a better due diligence. Because right now, Dan Ashworth is sat on a beach somewhere with the payoff that you give him, laughing at you. Because it's looking like he actually knew better. He was against the appointment. He thought it was nonsense. Bringing in a manager, playing a system that doesn't suit 90% of your personnel group. Suicide. He thought United needed a bit more stability than that. And then what you end up doing is end up forking out, 4 or 5 million to get him off Newcastle just to pay him off 4 or 5 million to get rid of him a few months later. I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's getting quite hard to see it. Because all I'm seeing is United have problems and then somehow finding a way to create more. But there needs to be a fix found. And INEOS, you're on the clock for me. I really think you are. A lot of viewing, a lot of scrutiny on Amorim. It's part and parcel of being United manager. And a lot of it's warranted. I don't think there's enough eyes on you. But I've got my eyes on you. Because at the moment, falling well below the level required. And United need to be going up this way. But at the moment, we're not even plateauing. Just a sinking ship. Not a sleeping giant, but a sinking one right now. And something needs to change, and change fast.